Hey everybody, it's Jay and Nick, and we're here to talk about MSR Houston. So, Judge Sajeev was there, and he dubbed this race the 2020 of Lemons races.
2020!
There was rain, and then there was blazing sun. There was a point where there were 3 different grass fires going on at once. There were 12 different cars in the penalty box all at the same time. Hella sweet and but terrible at this race. We've talked about them a lot before. USMC Racing. They're an outfit. They're kind of like Ranger Road. They take these horrible race cars. They come to a horrible race, and they invite lots of veterans to come in and have some fun. So among other things, they bring an entourage the size of an African dictator's. It's this giant mass of people. They set up a tent. They build a whole little village. They got food. They got families. They got great dogs. They even have their own MD physical therapist who comes and helps all the guys and guys with special needs. He gives them whatever kind of massaging they need. It's really spectacular. So in this race, admittedly, their 2 Crown Vics, their Camaro spent way too much time in the penalty box. We'll talk about that later. But they had a great attitude, and they always are a lot of fun.
As part of USMC's entire orbit, they had not one but 2 film crews following the whole story. One of them was the CW39 morning show local to Houston. Shannon Lanier, the anchor. Normally, TV people are such a pain in the ass and have so many special requests and just time-wasting activities that
They're the worst! They're the worst!
Obviously, Lemons winds up being responsible for somehow. CW39 and Shannon, they were the exception. They were cool. They enjoyed the whole thing. They even took a ride on the street snowmobile.
Okay, now talking about their fleet again, they also brought this Mustang. This was a straight-up BS race car. Had a Coyote motor, had a Cobra independent rear suspension scabbed into it, remote reservoir shocks. I mean, it's just a full-on race car. $500 my ass. So they got a zillion penalty laps. There was no way we were going to let this car win. And everybody was up in arms and like, this is an outrage. This is not in the spirit of Lemons. We just said, this is what's going to happen. Like, car's going to go out. It's going to totally blow up or it's going to hella crash. Like, just calm yourselves down. So listen, this is always a self-solving problem. We've seen it a million times. And you got to give these guys credit. They appreciated the irony, and they started creating their own memes within about 3 minutes of the wreck.
Hella sweet. Death Wheel Motorsports. This is the Napa Know-How Mazda truck. Some dudes from Louisiana. This truck is now on its 4th engine. Yeah, that's no big deal in the grand scheme of Lemons, but this is the 4th engine of a completely different type. Here's all the motors that this truck has had.
The B2000, a Kia 2.0, a GM 3800, and a GM 4.3.
Okay, which one's your favorite so far?
I'm liking the 4.3.
All right.
Hella sweet, we got some new penalty language. Now, Christian Ward, who is an active Air Force major, I think he runs a combat wing or something.
He works in the print shop.
Yeah, technically he does work in the print shop. Anyway, there's this thing in the military called Blue Falcon, at least in the Air Force, and Blue Falcon stands for BF, which stands for Buddy. And we applied this to Lemons in the following way. Guy gets a penalty. Guy doesn't serve his penalty, just comes and gives the car to somebody else and lets that poor sucker go out and get the black flag and serve the penalty. So Christian introduced the Blue Falcon so that the driver who got screwed can actually yell at the other driver who screwed him.
My turn is only 60 minutes long, and I have been in this box for a long time. I can't believe you would send me out there knowing that I was going to come back.
Let's talk for a second about Killer Bassa Racing's Nissan 350Z. I mean, look at this thing. $500 my ass. The judges hammered this thing with penalty laps, and then of course it broke, and the team pleaded with the judges, obviously we aren't cheating because the car broke. And that's the thing. If you spend a lot of money in motorsports, that doesn't mean that you don't also still suck. But terrible 11% Racing Fiat X19, they bought a Lemons legal kill switch from the Lemons store made by Pyrotech, and it failed. Now here's the thing, we've sold a lot of these kill switches, we've never actually heard of one fail, until some guys tried to install it into the wiring system of a Fiat X19. So it is possible that the problem did not lie with the kill switch. That being said, we did feel bad. Guys, if you want a free Pyrotect kill switch, or perhaps store credit equal to the value of a Pyrotect kill switch, email me and I'll set you up.
Hella sweet. So we've got a couple of BMW 2002s. They both have these real terrible high-mile junkyard S2000 motors in them, swapped in, scabbed in. They never run. They eat their diffs every single time. These poor bastards never finish a race, but they got a great attitude. They drive the cars to the track, and after a lot of repairing of differentials, they drive them back to the track. They're never the penalty box. Fabulous stuff.
Wow, you ruined classic. All right, of course, this is Houston, which means we got to do the slab penalty. What's the slab penalty? Well, in Houston, they've got a certain type of custom car called the slab. They got wheels that stick out several feet. They're driving down the street. They're swanging. They're poking. It's awesome. So, Judge Sajeev, Houston native, he brings wire wheel hubcap covers that look more or less like the wheels that would be on a real slab. If a team gets this penalty, they have to figure out how to affix these wheel covers to their Lemons car and go swanging through the paddock. Jar Racing got the penalty, Air Fryer Racing got the penalty. They both did a great job.
Hella sweet was the Mustang. Here's a question. How do you get a Mustang V8 not to blow up? Well, it's very simple. You swap the Ford V8 engine for a Lexus V8. And that's actually worked really well for these guys. They did develop a fuel leak. Unlike total Ford racers, they actually diagnosed and fixed it, so good on them. And then they went back out. Ultimately, their drive shaft blew up and ripped a giant chunk out of the unibody. That was kind of ugly, but they had a great attitude. Well done.
Hella sweet. For the last couple of years now, we've had a real consistent parade of Lemons Toyota Tercels. There was one at this race. That's a trend that we really want to see continue.
Now, the life of the Paddock Trophy, since the pandemic, we haven't been giving these out, right? Because we can't have parties, we can't have potlucks. However, MSR Houston, really being in the kind of middle of nowhere, we did have to figure out a way for all of us to get fed, and Escape Velocity Racing, they really stood up. They figured it out well in advance. They cooked all kinds of meals and delivered them very safely, even some vegan dishes, which is a little dicey in Texas. You can get shot for that. And the good news is they also applied that level of care, organization, and planning to their automobiles. For the I Got Screwed trophy, well, first I got to talk about the runner-up, which was the Snakebite Racing Audi. Yeah, this A4 Quattro. It was leading Class B by a mile. And pretty late in the race, car right in front of them, blew the hell up, oiled down the track, crash, done. Total, destroyed the car. So they got fairly well screwed on that. However, they were not the actual I Got Screwed. The actual I Got Screwed was another Audi A4 Quattro in Class B. And you might ask yourself, well, how is an Audi A4 Quattro in Class B? This is a finely tuned, racing-proven German sports sedan.
Yeah, this is pure black racing, and they had one driver who had flown in from out of state with his whole family, and once the engine blew up, they rebooked their flights at great expense because, hey, all right, we're just gonna go home early. Well, then the team mechanic says, oh, wait a minute, I can fix it. So all of these people, they came back to the track, and did the team mechanic fix it?
Yes, well.
For Heroic Fix, there was another honorable mention. This is Team Right of Way. It's a Honda Civic. It blew up. They found a replacement engine in Houston, worked 13 hours straight to swap the engine, fired it back up. It ran on 3 cylinders, smelled like sweet honey barbecue, but they did make it back on track. That was pretty good, but maybe not as good as the real winner.
Yeah, so the real Heroic Fix went to Team 170, team name That Bitch Carol Baskin. Fantastic team name, I gotta say. They entered a Geo Metro. They balled this thing up in Friday practice. They took it home. They worked on it until midnight, said, we're never going to get this Metro back together to race. They actually had a spare car that they had raced many, many years ago. It's a second generation Supra. And they dragged that thing out, and then they worked the rest of the night trying to get that Supra ready. They re-themed it before Saturday. They completely redid their old theme to be That Bitch Carol Baskin on the Supra. Brought the Supra out. no big surprise, that car promptly blew its motor. What are they going to do? Well, they decided, okay, we're not giving up now. They put another motor into the Supra, which took 4 goddamn ever. As they're going back and forth trying to get all the parts and all the cars moved around, they blow a trailer tire. It's Saturday night now. They're in the middle of nowhere. They blow a trailer tire. They try to buy a new trailer tire. Because of all the car parts purchases, all of their credit cards have been turned off at this point. I don't even know how they managed that. I think they must have stolen a tire from a parked car someplace. Got back to the track. Amazingly, Sunday, they actually took the start on Sunday with this car, and they took the checkered flag at the end of the day.
The special award for this race was They're Not Village Idiots, and this went to car number 123, The Village School. This was a bunch of high school students from The Village High School. They brought a Mustang. They had a great attitude. They were trying to figure out this cooling problem the entire weekend. They wound up swapping out 3 different radiators. At the end of the day, of course, it was a head gasket problem. That finally killed them, but they just did everything correctly. When they came to turn in their transponder, they had detailed it with 409 and Carnubo wax. They were awesome. We gave them the special award.
Judge's choice went to car 55, a Pontiac G6. Our first Pontiac G6. You'd think we'd have thousands of Pontiac G6s. This was the first one. And let me just tell you, if you ever think GM Sound of Power, this is the car. You know, the GM Sound of Power, this is the Pete Stout identified all General Motors cars for about a 30-year period. Sound like this. Anyway, so this team acquired the car from what they described as an amateur pharmaceutical enthusiast who had apparently been driving from Texas to Montana and fell asleep and totaled the car. One of the things, not really even funny, one of the things that happened is, of course, windshield got wiped out, and the team captain, in trying to replace the windshield before the race, dropped it on himself, sliced his arm, sliced his leg, had to go to the hospital, almost literally gave an arm and a leg for this car. Didn't stop them, that he couldn't recover enough to drive, however they brought the car. So amazingly, this terrible car, it actually ran great all weekend. The team did really well. The only time they were in the penalty box was to show the judges disgusting, gory hospital photos. They did it all right.
There's some joke in there about Pontiac, the judge, winning judge's choice. It's too complicated for us to figure out. Point is, car ran smooth as...
Organizer's choice went to the Nader Haters, H8R, because we're teenage girls. This is a second-generation Corvair. And second-generation Corvairs, you know, that's a car of an era that a certain new consultant we have hired could probably comment on.
He's an old Luddite who's convinced he's right. He's a car coot.
Oh, didn't see you there. So the Corvair's second generation model was actually much improved from the first, which causes it to flip over and kill the Octane. The Allison V12 did teach them a thing or two about turbocharging. Now, despite the name of Nader Haters, this is a second generation Corvair. Ralph Nader only really had a problem with the first generation Corvairs. In the occupation of Czechoslovakia, Nazi officers were forbidden from driving them. If tire pressure recommendations from GM are strictly followed, in the P40 they used a single-stage supercharger. From Hans Ledwinka, the engineer behind the Tatra, even in the 60s, plenty of automobiles available that did not flip over and kill their passengers.
He won't admit when he's full of he's a car coot.
To make this slightly less terrible, they replaced the Corvair motor with a Subaru motor, as one probably should. Still a rear-engine car, it's still a little bit hanky, and because Subaru still blew up and it didn't finish, but it was very well done. It's good and lemony on the outside and surprisingly well-engineered on the inside. We're going to do a whole Lemons Whirl about this later.
The index of effluency went to Squad Racing. A lot of A's in their team name. This is a 1979 Volvo 242 GT YU Room Classic. These guys wanted to go Lemons racing. They went on the Lemons forum to find a car. Find it, they did. It was $500. They made an offer for $400. Seller accepted it. They're off to the races, literally. As recently as last year, this car was being used as a daily driver to high school. In fact, still had the high school parking pass in the window. They added all the safety stuff, added some 900 treadwear all-season tires, came to the track. And when I say came to the track, well, these guys are young, they don't have a huge budget, they didn't have a trailer, but they live pretty close, so they came up with this solution. They only had a 2-person team, they refueled slowly at the pumps, they took their time with driver changes in the paddock, checked fluids, washed windows, very deliberately went through the whole process. They drove smart and safe, stayed out of everyone's way, never went to the penalty box. If they were any less competitive and real racery, we might have had to check their pulse to make sure they weren't dead. In any case, these guys were awesome. We want to see them again in Lemons, and now they've got a free entry because they won the IOE.
And here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Driver, how could this go so wrong with chaotic traffic and all those problems? Speed, you were better than this. Your brother, Rex, would not have died for your sins if this.